Revealed, how a billionaire CEO's heartwarming love for his maid led to an incredible life-changing transformation. Ethan Carter stared out over his empire, the sprawling city of New York below him, like a glittering sea of ambition. People rushed by, chasing dreams, and here he was, a self-made billionaire, with a penthouse overlooking Central Park. He should have felt fulfilled, living a life most could only envy. Yet an emptiness gnawed at him. The sky had turned gray, mirroring the clouds of despair hanging in his heart since that tragic day when he lost his parents in a car accident. The guilt weighed him down, an anchor in his isolated world. He wandered through his magnificent home, its opulence unwelcoming. When Maria, the maid, passed him by, she glanced up, her face lighting up momentarily. He noticed the way her hands ached from toil, and her smile, though shy, held warmth like the first rays of sun after a storm. In the rare moments they exchanged kind words, it reminded him of the innocence of lost childhood, of laughter and love now shadowed by longing. On a dreary morning, rain cascaded down his high-rise window, blurring the vibrant city. Ethan's phone buzzed relentlessly, summoning him to a crisis at the office. He sighed, the weight of the world pressing against his chest. Hurrying to the elevator, he stepped inside, hardly aware of his surroundings. Just then, Maria entered, carrying a bucket and mop. Their eyes locked in an electric moment that shattered Ethan's solitude. In her palm, she held a worn, rusty charm, a four-leaf clover. "You might need this today," she said, her voice tinged with unexplainable conviction. A smile danced on her lips as he accepted it, his heart thumping with an unexpected surge of hope. For a split second, the burden of his corporate life vanished, replaced by the warmth of a forgotten connection. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. In the days that followed, Ethan found himself looking for ways to cross paths with Maria. Their conversations deepened, revealing layers of resilience intertwined with dreams amidst the backdrop of endless skyscrapers. She talked about her children, the sacrifices she made, and the hope that kept her going. It struck him her genuine spirit and unwavering strength shone in stark contrast to his lonely existence. However, whispers of judgment followed them through the well-manicured halls of his penthouse, a constant reminder of the chasm between their worlds. The city pulsed with its harsh realities as Ethan struggled to navigate his growing feelings for Maria. Just when they began to breach the invisible barriers, chaos erupted. One scandal could bring his empire crashing down. It all hinged on trust and loyalty, and as betrayal loomed on the horizon, the darkness threatened to swallow them both. Would Ethan choose the life crafted by privilege or break free, embracing the transformative power of love? The answer lingered, just out of reach, in the charged air between them. Ethan barely slept, his mind swirling with thoughts of Maria. The charm she had given him rested under his pillow, a continuous reminder of her warmth amid his cold reality. Every moment they shared felt electric, yet the fear of judgment and scandal loomed over him like a storm cloud. He found himself drawn to her, not just as the maid in his employ but as a beacon of hope in a life that often felt dim. Their conversations on those rare occasions felt like precious treasures, each word exchanged as valuable as gold. He replayed her stories in his head. She spoke of her dreams for her children, aspirations that illuminated her sacrifice. The weight of his own lonely ambitions paled in comparison, yet, on the surface, the world around him was unforgiving. He played the part of the billionaire CEO, exuding control to his board, nodding through meetings while his heart yearned for something far more genuine. Gossip began to swirl through the halls, whispered assumptions and sideways glances that ignited anger in him. How could they judge what they didn't understand? One evening, he exited a meeting feeling defeated, lost in thought. His vision blurred with the weight of expectation. Nearby, he heard laughter, a joyous sound that seemed out of place in the sterile, high-pressure environment of his office. It was Maria. She was cleaning the lounge, chatting cheerfully with a colleague. A grin spread across her face, genuine and pure. Against his better judgment, Ethan approached. "You seem happy," he said, his voice softer than he intended. Maria looked up, surprise reflecting in her eyes before that familiar smile took over. "Sometimes it's the little things, you know," she replied, her tone brightening the dim office atmosphere. Ethan's heart skipped. The little things, a phrase, a simple truth, held more weight than his gold-plated awards hanging on the wall. Something bubbled inside him. Can I join you?" They shared brief moments filled with laughter and stories, and every laugh felt like sunlight breaking through his clouds. But just as quickly as it began, it was over when the harsh voice of his assistant cut through the air. "Ethan, we need you upstairs." The smile faded from Maria's face, replaced by understanding, yet he noticed a flicker of disappointment. The memory of that fleeting connection gnawed at him as he trudged upstairs, the familiar weight returning to his shoulders. Back in his office, Ethan wrestled with his choices. Trust was a fickle friend, and he feared losing his empire if discovery of his feelings broke into the public sphere. But Maria's laughter echoed, a playful reminder of the light he had forgotten. As he sat, contemplating his life, the door swung open. It was Maria. I wanted to discuss the new cleaning schedule," she began, but her eyes held something deeper. "Can we talk about us instead?" he blurted, the words escaping before self-doubt could chain them back down. Silence swelled between them, filled with uncertainty and hope. What would she say? Would he finally see clarity where there was only chaos? As her expression lingered somewhere between surprise and curiosity, Ethan braced himself for whatever lay ahead. The world might crumble around him, but this moment, this chance, felt too pivotal to walk away from. Could love truly flourish amidst societal disdain? With a heart pounding in his chest, he awaited her answer. Maria stood still, her eyes locked onto Ethan's, and for a moment, the world faded away. It felt like they were in their own little bubble, suspended in time. She opened her mouth to speak, but words seemed trapped in her throat, a mix of surprise and uncertainty swirling in her mind. Ethan's heart raced as he searched her face for a glimpse of her thoughts. What was she feeling? Did she recognize the depth of his question? He caught a flicker of vulnerability in her gaze. The tension felt like a taut string ready to snap. I need to know," he continued, his voice steadying with determination. "What do you think about us?" Maria took a breath, her brow furrowing slightly. "Ethan, what are you saying?" she finally asked, her tone tinged with confusion. "We come from different worlds." The truth hit him like a punch to the gut. He had known this all along, yet here they were, dancing around it. "I know," he replied, desperation creeping into his voice. "But those worlds don't have to define us." He hesitated, gathering his thoughts, heart spilling open as he took a step closer. "I've never felt this way before. You make me feel alive." Her eyes widened, and in that moment, he saw a brief flicker of hope. But doubt crept back, clouding her expression. What would people say? "You're the CEO of this company, I'm just the maid." It's not that simple. Who cares what they say? He challenged, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. This isn't just a fling to me. I want to explore what could be between us. Silence enveloped them, thick and heavy. Ethan feared he had pushed too hard. But beneath the surface, he was ready to fight for this connection that sparked each time they exchanged glances, shared laughter, or stole moments together amidst the chaos of their lives. Maria's shoulders sagged as she grappled with her fears. What if it all goes wrong? What if you lose everything? You mean what if I lose the facade I've built around myself? He retorted, his voice dropping to a whisper. Maria, it hasn't been everything I hoped. I feel trapped. You give me a reason to break free. She looked down, a battle raging within her. Ethan reached out, grasping her hand gently. Her skin was warm beneath his touch, sending tendrils of electricity skyward, igniting a flicker of hope. Please, he breathed, searching her eyes, willing her to see his sincerity. Let us not allow fear to dictate our choices. We can be more than what we seem. Together. Time hung in the air as Maria's breath quickened, and the silence morphed into a resonating heartbeat of possibilities. Would she take the leap with him? Slowly, she lifted her gaze, meeting his eyes with a mixture of longing and fear. Okay, she murmured, almost a whisper, the word hanging like a fragile thread. Ethan felt a surge of emotion, relief, exhilaration, and a hint of trepidation. But before he could respond, the moment shattered. The door swung open again, and Ethan's assistant peeked in. Ethan, we really need you upstairs now, she interrupted, her eyes darting between them, confusion written all over her face. Maria pulled her hand away as if a spark had shocked her, her expression morphing into one of panic. I should go, she stammered, backing away. Wait! He exclaimed, but the moment had slipped through his fingers like sand. The weight of unspoken words hung in the air, and with every passing second, the reality of their world crashed back. As Maria turned to leave, a tidal wave of urgency washed over him. I'll find you, he called after her, desperation coating each syllable. Would their worlds allow for something so profoundly different? As the door closed behind her, leaving him alone with his thoughts, Ethan understood one thing. He was willing to gamble everything he had for the chance to find out, but could that chance truly lead to love, or would it destroy them both? Time felt fragile, and he knew he had to act fast. With determined resolve, he grabbed his phone and typed out a message. The cascade of emotions built inside him, leading to one overarching question: was this the beginning of something beautiful, or would it all come crashing down? Ethan stared at his phone, fingers hovering over the screen, heart racing. Should he send the message, or think it through longer? Thoughts whirled as he replayed Maria's expression in his mind. The moment had felt electric, raw and real, yet here he was, caught in a web of expectations and fears. He couldn't afford to overthink it. Not now. With a swift tap, he pressed send and felt a flutter of hope. The words read, Maria, can we meet after work? I really need to talk. Time crawled as he waited for her response. He looked out the office window, watching the city pulsing with life below. Cars hummed, people bustled, but inside him, everything felt still, like a world caught in suspense. He could almost feel the distant beat of their possible future, echoing in his heart, drowning out the voices of doubt. What's up with you? His assistant Sarah's voice pulled him back. She leaned against the doorframe, eyebrow raised, a half-smile teasing at her lips. You look like you've just seen a ghost. Ethan forced a chuckle. Just debating some business strategies. Right. She rolled her eyes, clearly not buying his excuse. You're too good at lying. An awkward silence followed, and he ghosted around the question that hung between them: his intention with Maria. What would Sarah say? Would she understand? Would he even be able to tell her? Listen, you would tell me if anything serious was happening, right? She asked, now leaning in closer. Ethan shifted, caught off guard by her directness. Why do you ask? Just a hunch. I've seen the way you two look at each other. She smirked knowingly. It's sweet, really. Bringing a hand to his hair, he chuckled nervously. I wouldn't call it sweet. But he felt a rush of warmth at her words. It was kind of her to see it that way, but also terrifying, a reminder of the consequences of standing out in their respective worlds. Before Sarah could press further, the ping of his phone broke the moment. His heart raced again as he read Maria's response. Yes, of course, I'll be waiting. Where? Perfect, he whispered under his breath. He typed out the nearby cafe's name and hit send. Look who's suddenly chatty. Sarah teased, crossing her arms with a grin that he forced a smile but felt that excitement gripping him again, leaning toward the anticipation. Just scheduling a meeting. The rest of the workday blurred by, numbers and meetings fading into a background noise, nothing compared to the whirlwind awaiting him. As soon as the clock ticked to 5, he slipped on his jacket, his heart thumping wildly as he left the office, adrenaline coursing through his veins. At the cafe, the air tinged with the aroma of brewed coffee and freshly baked pastries, Ethan took a moment to steady himself. He spotted Maria seated at a small table in the corner, her fingers nervously twisting a napkin. Seeing her sparked something deep within him, a certainty that she was worth fighting for, despite the obstacles. He approached slowly, heart pounding and palms sweaty. "Hey," he said softly, taking a seat across from her, scanning her face for any sign of what she might be feeling. "Hey," she replied, hesitantly, eyes big and searching. "What you did back there, it changed everything for me," he started, no longer willing to bury his feelings. But Maria held up a hand, shaking her head lightly. "Ethan, there's so much at stake." He reached across the table, wrapping his fingers around hers. "I get that, but I can't just pretend it doesn't exist. I want you to know, I'm not afraid of what others think. I want us." Her breath hitched, and for a fleeting moment, he thought he saw the reflection of his feelings in her eyes. But then the unease surfaced again, splintering the moment. "What if this ends up breaking us?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Then we'll face it together. I'd rather try than always wonder what could have been." Maria looked down, her emotions swirling, uncertain whether to retreat or reach for a shared future. I don't know, Ethan." Time hung heavy between them, fear and hope dancing in a delicate balance. Would they navigate this uncharted territory, or would it slip right through their fingers? As they sat in the cozy cafe, the world around them felt strangers to their worries. Did they have it in them to defy everything they'd known? Just then, before either could speak again, a loud crash from outside drew their attention. They turned simultaneously, and Ethan's heart dropped at the sight. An accident had just taken place, right outside the cafe. Could this moment turn disastrous for them? The noise outside jolted Ethan back into reality. He glanced at Maria, her eyes wide with worry as the sound of shattering glass and honking horns reached them. The cozy cafe felt like it had shrunk at that very moment, the air thick with anxiety. "What was that?" she asked, a tremor of panic lacing her voice. "I don't know," he replied, getting to his feet. The urge to protect her surged within him. "Stay here." Before she could protest, he rushed outside. The chaotic scene unfolded like a nightmare. 2 cars were crumpled, their frames twisted, smoke rising into the air. A small crowd had begun to gather, faces drawn tight with concern and shock. Ethan's heart pounded in his ears as he searched for signs of injury, his eyes flicking back to the cafe, willing Maria to be safe inside. That he spotted a young woman lying on the pavement. The sight knocked the wind from his lungs. He dashed over, kneeling beside her. A middle-aged man, likely a passerby or maybe the driver of one of the vehicles, was already there, checking her pulse. "Call for help," he shouted as he assessed the woman's condition. Blood trickled from her forehead, and her eyes fluttered open, confusion taking hold. "Stay with me," Ethan urged, squeezing her hand gently. "Help is on the way. You're going to be okay." As sirens wailed in the distance, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Stealing a glance at the cafe, he saw Maria peering out through the glass, worry etched across her beautiful face. Just seeing her there both terrified and concerned sent a fresh wave of determination through him. He had to make this right, not just for them, but for this woman crumpled on the ground. The paramedics arrived quickly, their professionalism cutting through the chaos. Ethan reluctantly stepped back, his hands trembling from the adrenaline. He felt Maria's presence beside him, and the shared anxiety pulled them closer together. He turned to her, searching her gaze. "Ethan, what if," she began, voice shaking. Just don't think about the what-ifs right now. This is bigger than us, he answered, knowing his voice sounded steadier than he felt. The reality of the day's events pressed in on him, making everything seem fragile. They stood side by side, watching as the paramedics worked, exchanging glances that communicated unspoken fears and hopes. The air buzzed with tension, but somehow amidst the uncertainty, Ethan could feel a shift, a bond forming that neither of them could deny. "Can we go back inside?" Maria finally asked, her voice softer, almost lost in the noise. "Yeah, let us get out of here," he said, leading her away from the scene, but as they turned to leave, a shout stopped him in his tracks. "Wait!" A police officer was approaching them, eyes serious. "Did either of you see what happened?" Ethan's mind raced. The last thing he wanted was to get tangled in a police report when he was finally facing his feelings for Maria. Still, it wouldn't be right to hold back. He took a breath, feeling the weight of the moment. This wasn't just about him anymore. "Yes, we did," he replied, stepping forward to give his account. As he spoke, he felt Maria's fingers brush against his arm. It was electric, and in that instant, the chaos outside the cafe faded into the background. It was just the two of them against the world. Would the honesty of this moment bring them closer, or drive a wedge between their newfound connection? As the officer took notes, Ethan glanced back at Maria, trying to read her expression. One thing was clear: everything was changing, and he had to be ready to confront whatever was next. There was a flicker of determination in her eyes, and that hope sparked something deep within him. Maybe they could rise from all of this stronger. But would the aftermath prove to be a turning point, or would it set them further apart? And as they stood there, side by side, a chilling uncertainty washed over him. What would happen once they returned to the quiet, unshaken world they knew? The police officer finished his notes, but the weight of Ethan's words lingered in the air. He could feel Maria's eyes on him, searching for reassurance, while the noise from the accident still echoed nearby. The sirens were fading, but their significance wasn't lost on either of them. "Thank you for your cooperation," the officer said, his voice cutting through the tension. "You both did the right thing here." He turned to leave, but seconds later, called back, "If you think of anything else, please reach out." Ethan nodded, his heart still racing. The officer walked away, and the reality of what just transpired hung heavily between them. "Ethan," Maria started, her voice barely a whisper. "What if we didn't say anything? What if we just walked away?" He shook his head, scrubbing a hand through his hair. "We couldn't. That wouldn't be right." She needed I know, she interrupted, glancing back at the chaos. "But it's just everything feels so different now." "Yeah, it does." The weight of her words settled on him, heavier than he expected. Her uncertainty rattled something deep within, and he was unsure how to ease her worries. But maybe different isn't bad. Maria took a step closer, her face catching the sunlight filtering through the clouds. "It just feels like things are shifting. This could change everything for us, Ethan." Her honesty hit him like a wave, and he could see vulnerability in her eyes, fears he felt reflected back at him. He wanted to reach out, to tell her they would face it together, that they could find a way through. But a knot formed in his chest. "I think something bigger is happening here," he said softly. "Not just for that woman, but for us too." She searched his gaze, trying to read him. "You mean us?" "Yeah," he replied, the moment feeling both exciting and terrifying. "It makes me realize life's too short to hold back." Tension fizzed in the air between them, and for a heartbeat, Ethan thought about that first spark of something beyond friendship that had flickered between them. But this moment felt different. The events of the day had pushed them together but also thrown everything they understood into uncertainty. "What do we do next?" Maria asked, her voice steadying. "We take it one step at a time," he suggested. "We need to talk, really talk. About where we want this to go." Maria smiled, that beautiful, brave smile that made his heart skip. "Okay, I can do that. Just give me a moment. Ethan nodded, ready to let the silence settle between them. But as he watched her, he felt a deep desire to reach out, to pull her in. The world outside their bubble remained chaotic, but they could carve out their own sanctuary if they tried. He stepped closer, and she leaned against him, the warmth of her presence calming. Just as they began to breathe in the moment, the cafe door swung open, startling them. An elderly woman with shock-painted features scanned the area, her eyes locking onto Ethan and Maria. "Are you two all right?" she asked, her voice shaky yet firm. "I saw the accident from across the street." "Yes, just got caught up in it," Ethan replied, not wanting to get deep into details. But the woman wasn't done. "You're both lucky you weren't hurt," she said, a hint of something serious in her tone. "This world can turn on a dime. You have to hold on to what matters, and that's each other." Ethan's heart squeezed at her words. It felt like more than coincidence, like a sign. "Thank you," Maria said with sincerity, giving the woman a nod before shifting her gaze back to Ethan. But before Ethan could respond, the woman turned to leave, throwing a final piece of advice over her shoulder. "Life is fragile. Don't let fear keep you from loving each other fully." Her words hung heavy between them. Just how much of their fears were holding them back? How many chances had they let slip away? Ethan felt a sudden surge of determination. It was time to stop lingering in the unknown and start exploring their possibilities. Maybe they had been living on the edges of their true feelings for too long, and as they stepped back toward the cafe, the air around them seemed to hum with potential. It was unclear what tomorrow would bring, but there was one thing he knew for certain: it was time to dive into their future together, consequences be damned. But before he could voice that thought, Maria's phone buzzed in her pocket, pulling her attention. She pulled it out, her face transforming with unexpected urgency as she read the screen. "Ethan, I have to take this. It's my brother." His heart dropped a little at the interruption, yet curiosity swirled in his mind. Why now? What could she possibly be facing? "Is everything okay?" he asked, sensing the weight in her tone. Maria's expression softened, and he could see both fear and determination battling within her. "I don't know. But I need to find out." As she walked a few steps away to take the call, Ethan's eyes followed her. In that moment, he realized that while they had shared a connection so strong just moments ago, the world around them still pulsated with challenges. What awaited them back within the walls of their real lives could shift everything they had started to build, and he couldn't shake the feeling that the next few moments would change everything once again. What would Maria discover? Would this be another turning point for them, or something else entirely? Ethan stood a few paces away, feeling the weight of the silence settle on him. He could see Maria's brow furrow in concentration as she spoke into her phone, her voice barely a whisper. He tried to focus on the noise around them, the distant chatter from the cafe, the soft rustling of leaves in the wind, but each sound only served to amplify the tension that had taken root in his chest. As he watched her, the worried lines in her expression struck him deeply. Something was wrong. He could sense it in the way she shifted her stance, how her usually calm demeanor seemed to flicker like a candle caught in a draft. He wanted to reach out to her, to hold her and assure her that whatever it was, they would face it together. But he remained still, grappling with his own unease about the unknown. The seconds ticked by like hours. Ethan's heart pounded in his ears as he tried to catch snippets of her conversation, but all he picked up were a few fragmented words: hospital, emergency, and please. His mind raced with possibilities, each one darker than the last. Finally, Maria hung up and turned to face him. Her eyes were wide, filled with a storm of emotions, and he could feel panic creeping into his own heart. "What is it?" he asked before she could say anything. "Is everything okay?" She hesitated, biting her lip as if the very act of speaking would break something inside her. "My brother, he was in an accident," she finally said, her voice trembling. "He's at the hospital. I have to go." A sudden chill swept through him. "What happened?" is he? I don't know. Maria interrupted, her voice rising as desperation took over. I just need to get there. I need to see him. Ethan stepped forward, his instinct kicking in. Then let us go. I'll drive you. No, I can't ask you to do that. You should, Maria, he cut her off, holding her gaze steady. You're not asking. I'm offering. You shouldn't be alone right now, especially not with everything that just happened. Her eyes searched his, and for a moment, all the chaos faded into the background, leaving just the two of them. Then, as if the gravity of his offer pulled her in, she nodded imperceptibly, the tension easing just enough for him to see her gratitude glimmer. Okay, she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. They hurried to his car, the world around them blurring into a mix of colors and sounds as they rushed to the hospital. Ethan's mind buzzed with anxieties of his own. What if Maria's brother was seriously hurt? What if this was a turning point? All he wanted to do was protect her, to shelter her from more pain, but he felt utterly helpless against the unknown. As they drove, a heavy silence filled the car. Ethan could feel the weight of unspoken words. He wanted to say something comforting, but nothing felt adequate. Instead, he reached over and squeezed her hand, a small gesture meant to convey his unwavering support. I'm right here, okay? He said softly, his heart racing as he focused on the road. Whatever happens, we'll get through it together. Her fingers tightened around his. Thank you, Ethan. That means more than you know. Minutes later, they arrived at the hospital. The sterile smell hit them as they walked through the automatic doors, the buzzing lights and hurried footsteps all blending into a nervous symphony. The receptionist looked up, and Maria rushed to the desk, voice shaking as she asked for information about her brother. Ethan stood close behind her, his heart pounding as he watched her. He saw the fear etched on her face, the worry that had taken root in her eyes, and he felt a surge of protectiveness wash over him. Moments stretched into what felt like an eternity. Finally, the receptionist slid a form toward Maria, pointing towards a hallway with an expression that blended pity and urgency. Room 214. Let us go, Ethan said, leading the way, his heart resonating with resolve. As they walked, he sensed the air shift again, heavy with uncertainty. What would they find in that room? Would life return to normal, or would everything spiral out of control? Maria's grip on his hand tightened as they approached the room. In that instant, everything felt at stake: past, present, and future. They might be about to face the darkest moment of their lives. What awaited them behind that door? Would their bond withstand the weight of this event, or would it shatter under the strain? The silence around them echoed louder than words ever could, every heartbeat pulsing with the gravity of what was about to unfold. Ethan pushed the door open, the quietness of the room striking him like a cold wind. It felt sterile, too clean, too composed for the chaos spilling from Maria's heart. She stepped inside first, her breath catching as her eyes found the hospital bed. Maria's brother lay there, pale and still, a thin line of tubes snaking around him. A heart monitor beeped steadily, a rhythmic reminder of the life still within him, but it was a rhythm that held both promise and dread. Light from the window cast a harsh glow, enveloping the room in an eerie solace. Then Maria breathed, her voice trembling. The moment hung in the air, thick with unsaid fears. Ethan felt his own throat tighten at the sight of her brother, a young man who not long ago had been full of life and laughter. Now, he looked so fragile, almost ghostly. She rushed to the bedside, gripping his hand tightly, leaning in close as if her presence alone could weave strength back into his body. I'm here, Ben. I'm so sorry. I'll stay with you, she murmured, her voice breaking. Ethan stood back, suddenly unsure of how to navigate this kind of grief. He could watch her, or find a way to help, but everything felt trivial against the sheer reality of what they faced. Instead, he took a step closer, trying to ground her, to reassure her that he would not leave her side. Is he going to be okay? Ethan asked, though he questioned whether he really wanted the answer. The weight of uncertainty hung over them like a storm cloud, and Maria didn't lift her gaze from her brother. "I don't know. I can't lose him." Ethan's heart sank. He knew how deeply Maria cared for her family, how fiercely protective she was of everyone she loved. This was more than a moment, this was a test of everything they had been through together, a moment that could shape their futures in ways they couldn't yet comprehend. The minutes dragged on, each second marked by the steady beeping of the monitor. Eventually, a doctor entered, his gaze focused and his demeanor calm yet serious. The tension in the room shifted as all eyes turned to him. "I'm Dr. Harris," he said, glancing between Maria and Ethan. "We've stabilized your brother, but he's in critical condition. He suffered a severe head injury during the accident. We're doing everything we can." Maria's grip on Ben's hand tightened like a vice. "Can he hear me?" Her voice was just above a whisper, but there was a pleading energy in it that cut through the thick atmosphere. "We believe he can hear you," the doctor replied gently. "Talking to him could help. He needs to know you're here." Ethan watched Maria lean closer, her face inches from Ben's. "You've got to fight, Ben. Please, don't leave us. I need you, we all need you." Tears sprang to her eyes, rolling down her cheeks as she poured every ounce of love she had into her words. Ethan felt his own eyes misting up as he stepped closer, his heart aching for both Maria and her brother. It was a raw moment, love, fear, and hope all intertwining in the stillness of the room. Out in the waiting area, families huddled, some laughing, some crying, bonds tested and strengthened in an instant. He realized how fragile life was, how quickly everything could change. It was easy to take for granted the moments spent together until they were suddenly at risk. As the minutes slipped away, Maria remained at Ben's side, whispering stories and memories, the very essence of their past. Ethan lingered, knowing she needed to share the warmth of their shared love and history. Then, just as he began to feel the gravity of despair weighing down on him, Ben's eyelids fluttered. A flicker, a sign of life returning, and hope surged within the room. Maria's breath caught in her throat, and Ethan's heart raced, but as joy mixed with uncertainty, a terrible thought wormed its way into his mind. They weren't out of danger yet. What if this was merely a moment before the deeper fall? With each heartbeat filling the space, Ethan felt the urgency swell. What if healing was just the beginning? As the doctor stepped closer, a serious look on his face, Ethan knew this was only the beginning of a long battle. Would they emerge stronger, or would this moment tear them apart? He felt the walls begin to close in, the stakes rising higher than he had ever imagined. What did the future hold for them, and could their bond withstand the trials that lay ahead? The sound of muted footsteps echoed in the hallway outside as Ethan felt the tension gripping the room deepen. The monitors beeped, counting down each precious moment, and Maria remained steadfast, never taking her eyes off her brother. She was a lighthouse of hope in an ocean of despair, but Ethan could see the storm brewing within her. "Maria," he said softly, trying to coax her attention. "Why don't I get you some water? You need to take care of yourself too." He stepped back, hoping to give her space while still lingering close enough to support her. She shook her head, her eyes unwavering on Ben's face. "No. I can't leave him, I want tea." Her voice was fierce, yet broken, a contradiction that pulled at Ethan's heart. A nurse entered to check the drip, adjusting the flow with delicate precision. She threw them a small, sympathetic smile, her eyes filled with kindness. "He's stable for now," she said gently. "We have to wait and see how he responds. Do you want to sit, Maria?" "I'm fine standing," Maria replied, her tone sharper than intended. But Ethan understood she was fighting a battle within, one that demanded her unwavering presence. Minutes turned to hours, and the message boards outside the room flashed with bright colors as visitors came and went. Laughter and grief intermingled in the corridor. Yet inside their cocoon, an uncomfortable silence settled, punctuated only by the mechanical sounds of machines working tirelessly. Ethan felt the burden of the moment. He wanted to lift Maria's spirits, perhaps share an old joke or a fond memory, but it felt wrong, too light against the heaviness in the air. Instead, he reached for her shoulder, squeezing gently, hoping to convey support without words. Maria leaned back against him for a brief moment, her warmth seeping into his side. It was a quiet comfort in utter chaos. I don't know what I'd do if I lost him," she whispered, the tremor in her voice slicing through him like glass. "You won't lose him." Ethan's own voice was steady, reflecting his desperation to instill some sense of certainty. "He's a fighter, like you." Just then, Ben's fingers twitched. It was subtle but enough to pull their attention. "Did you see that?" Maria's voice rose with tentative hope, and Ethan leaned in closer. "Ben?" she called, her heart thundering as she grabbed his hand tighter. "Keep talking to him," Ethan urged. He saw the flicker of promise in her eyes. "He can feel you." Courage pulled Maria next to Ben, her voice warming with memories: childhood mischief, family vacations, even Ben's favorite pizza toppings. The room felt alive with her words, each story weaving strength through the sterile air. Ethan watched as Maria illuminated the dark corners of loss with the bright hues of love. They were fighting for Ben, and for a moment, the world outside faded into nothingness, but suddenly, the heart monitor beeped erratically, slicing the air with nerves sharper than knives. A sense of urgency filled the room, and the nurse rushed back in. "We need to adjust some things here," she said, her demeanor instantly shifting. Panic surged through Ethan as the nurse began calling for help. Maria's face fell, she took a step back, eyes wide and fear-stricken. No, please," she begged, clutching Ben's hand as if she could hold on to him forever. The room turned frantic, nurses and doctors rushing in. Ethan felt helpless and out of control, battling to keep his own heart steady in the storm. As the reality of the moment set in, he knew this was a crossroads neither of them had anticipated. Would they have the strength to battle together? Could they keep their world from shattering? Ethan pulled Maria back towards him, whispering a silent promise into her ear, hoping that somehow that strength would reach through the chaos. And just then, as the alarms blared, the door swung open again, revealing a familiar face that would change everything, sending ripples through the fragile space surrounding them. What they didn't expect to hear next could alter their fate in ways they never imagined. Ethan's world narrowed to a pinprick as he recognized the figure standing in the doorway. It was David, his childhood friend, a grim look etched on his face. "Ethan, I heard from your assistant. You're here?" His voice was low, but urgency dripped from it like heavy rain. "Yeah, it's Maria's brother. He was in an accident." The words tumbled out, a frantic release of the chaos brewing within. Ethan looked back at Maria. She gripped her brother's hand, eyes wide with fear. "I can't lose him, David," Maria whispered, and the tremble in her voice struck like a thunderclap. David stepped forward, an instinct to offer support and comfort. "I'm here," he said, making his way through the panic. "What can I do?" The fluttering of the heart monitor became a backdrop to the fierce uncertainty. Maria's expression tightened as she scanned the room filled with medical staff, her voice trembling with desperation. "He needs to wake up," she breathed. "He just needs to wake up." "Maybe he can hear you," Ethan encouraged softly, squeezing her shoulder gently. "Keep talking to him, Maria. Keep reminding him of who he is." Maria nodded, drawing in a trembling breath. "Ben, remember our trip to the cabin?" The chaos settled around them. Each word cracked through the layers of despair, becoming a lifeline. Ethan watched closely, the hope growing like a flame amidst the swirling shadows. David leaned closer too, wrapped in the moment, and for a fleeting second, everyone was united by love and fear. But just then, the monitors beeped again, quicker, more urgent. "We need to stabilize," a nurse barked, and the flood of medical professionals intensified. Maria stepped back, panic flaring in her eyes. Ethan pulled her close, heart thrumming wildly. "I won't let anything happen," he murmured, his voice steady despite the tempest around them. In that moment, the door swung open once more, and the doctor returned, imposing strength radiating from him. "We need your brother to respond," he said crisply to Maria. "Whatever you can do, keep talking, keep calling him back to you." The energy in the room shifted, the very air crackled with anticipation. And then, against the din and chaos, there was silence. A moment of focus. Ben's eyelids flickered again, and this time, his fingers moved slightly. Hope ignited in Maria's eyes. "That's it, Ben. Fight for us," she urged, voice rising with fervor. "You promised you'd always be my big brother. Just a bit more, Ben, you got this." Ethan added, feeling the tension grow anew, and it felt monumental. "And remember the time you almost fell off the jet ski?" Maria went on, laughter breaking through her tears. "You thought you were a pro. We all fell into the water, even Dad." "Ben! Wake up!" David chimed in, backed with familiarity. "We can't lose you, man. We need you in our lives to remind us how to live." The air thickened with emotion, a collective force pulling against the abyss of fear. The nurse adjusted the four-drip, her careful movements mirroring the hope coalescing in the room. All at once, the stillness shattered. Ben's eyes fluttered open, his gaze soft but focused. "Maria?" he croaked, voice weak yet steadying the storm inside her. "Ben!" Maria gasped, bridging the chasm of despair and relief in a heartbeat, her embrace enveloping him. "You're okay. You're back." Ethan felt a rush of triumph pulse through his chest. They had fought together against the dark, and they had won at least for now. The warmth in the room began to radiate anew, drawing them into a shared moment of relief. As they settled back, breathless and awash in hope, Ethan caught Maria's gaze. Through the swirling chaos, the bond between them had transformed, deeper than before. In that moment, standing united, he knew something vital had shifted. "Whatever comes next, we face it together," he promised, his voice a steady whisper. She nodded, gratitude gleaming in her eyes. Their hands intertwined, a thread of connection that had grown stronger from their shared journey, the dark days, the fear, and now, the glimmers of joy. Together, Maria echoed, wiping away tears that sparkled like diamonds against the fluorescent lights. Ethan smiled, warmth filling his heart, feeding the hope that had flickered and now roared to life. Whatever storms lay ahead, he was ready to navigate them side by side. Together, they would build a new reality, free from the shadows that had once encased them. As the bustling world of the hospital settled around them, he knew their story was just beginning, a story woven from threads of love and strength, resilience, and hope. In that quiet hospital room, surrounded by tangled worries, the promise of new beginnings glimmered brightly. Life was fragile, but amidst the chaos, there was one truth they now shared: they were not alone. Now's the moment to latch onto this story. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Every click makes a difference. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about how this story ended. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel this transformation. You need to support the channel, it's more important than ever. Don't wait not even one more second to share.